Bitcoin has been one of the most controversial topics in finance for quite some time now. Some people think that it's a currency that's meant to take over all of the world's money and eventually everyone in the world is going to be just spending in Bitcoin. Some people describe it as digital gold, and some people just think it's a gimmick or a scam. In this video, I'm going to break it all down for you. I'm going to give you a summary of what Bitcoin is, what exactly it does, and why it's an exciting time for you to understand all of this. What I have to say might surprise you. Hey everyone, my name's Nolan. My students call me Professor G, and it is my passion helping young people understand personal finance and the ins and outs of starting a business. Let's do this. Now, I'm super big into making sure that you understand everything if you're going to invest into something. And so a lot of my students are asking me about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in general. I make it my point to make sure they understand what it is that they may be getting themselves into. And just because something is super new and people don't know a lot about it and that it might be volatile, may not be enough of a reason for you not to invest in it. And so I'm going to share with you what I think is going to happen in the next 10 years with Bitcoin and what you should do today to take advantage. So before I get started here, I'm just very hesitant to talk about cryptocurrencies because of its volatile nature and because I deeply want you guys to be safe in whatever you're doing whenever you are investing or doing anything with your finances. So let me just say that everything that I talk about here is things that I have researched and things that I believe and I'm comfortable with my money. But I'm definitely not advocating for you to do these types of things unless you totally understand it and you feel comfortable. Everybody's a little bit different. I recommend that you talk with many different financial advisory type people, of which I am not, before making any type of decision into how you spend your money or how you use your money. So, what is Bitcoin? First of all, what is a cryptocurrency? Well, that's my first issue with this whole thing, is the name, cryptocurrency. It makes it sound like it's something that's going to be money when you say the word currency. While that may have been what it was intended to be at its inception, Bitcoin is now seen as more of a store of value than actual legal tender or money itself. It's more of an asset, something like a house. If you're going to buy a house as an investment, you're not going to pay for your next McDonald's cheeseburger with a piece of your house. But you could sell that house at some point and maybe will have made some money. And with that money, you can then go and buy your McDonald's cheeseburger. Maybe while we're on that subject though, stop buying McDonald's cheeseburgers. There's so many better options out there. Get healthy, y'all. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of Bitcoin like gold. Today, gold is somewhere around $1,750 per ounce. That's how much it's worth. Gold does go up or down in price based on a couple of key things. The thing with gold is that if you were to go and try to buy something from somebody and it costed around $1,750, I bet you that person might be up to taking that piece of gold, that ounce of gold, for payment. Everyone generally agrees that gold is worth what it says it's worth. So while gold is not technically a currency, it is an asset. So Bitcoin should be looked at in a similar way. It's not just an asset, it's a digital asset. And while we're on the subject of assets, I'd like to ask for an asset of you in clicking that like button down below. My goal is to educate more people on this confusing technology and just personal finance in general. With your guys' like, that's going to help the YouTube algorithm be able to push this video out to more people. So if you like content like this, personal finance or investing or entrepreneurship, please like, subscribe, comment down below. I promise to get you guys solid content like this weekly and upgrade your investing game long term. So back to the similarities of gold and Bitcoin. What makes gold worth the value that it's worth are a couple of key things. Number one is that it's durable and it doesn't corrode like other metals. So it's gonna be around forever. Number two, it's just shiny and it has an awe factor. People look at it and they think of things like riches or kings or treasures or something. Another reason is that it's not easily duplicated and you can't just make it on your own. You have to actually get gold from a source for for it to be real gold. And lastly, societies have always put high emotional and sentimental value really to gold. So the basic reason though of why the value of gold continues to go up is because the demand for gold keeps going up while the supply has been basically static for a long period of time, or growing at a low static rate for a long time. So when the supply stays about the same and the demand goes up, then that means that the price goes up. So all the reasons why gold is such a valuable asset are very similar to why Bitcoin is such a valuable asset and why there's such a craze for it right now. People are starting to figure out the similarities. So while gold is durable and doesn't corrode, Bitcoin is the same because it lives on this thing called the blockchain. Any transaction or anything that goes on in the actual blockchain lives there forever. And so it can't be erased, it can't be taken out. If something happened, then it's there. That's very important for anything financial, anything where you have to have a proof that something actually happened. You want there to be a healthy ledger that doesn't change and that you can always go back to for proof. So now the blockchain is a specific type of database. As new data comes in, it's entered into a fresh block. Once the block is filled with data, it's chained onto the previous block, which makes the data chain together in chronological order. It differs from a typical database in the way it stores information. Blockchains store data in blocks that are chained together. The next reason, and my favorite reason as to why I started really looking into Bitcoin, is due to its scarcity. The reason why gold is so valuable is because it's scarce. It's very rare for you to go out and just find some gold. You can't just like build gold in a lab. You have to actually have it and mine it, and it takes time and it takes effort and blood, sweat, and tears, and most of it is already mined. And so there's a certain amount of supply that isn't just being added to. Bitcoin is the exact same way, except for Bitcoin's even better, because gold, there is technically a possibility in some random area of the world somebody could be digging and find like 500 tons of gold somewhere. And if that happens, that adds to the supply, and when supply goes up, that means the value goes down, because there's so much of it for it to go around. Bitcoin was built to have a total supply of only 21 million coins. 21 million total. No more Bitcoins can ever be produced. In my opinion, this is the #1 reason for its value and why it will continually go up. There's no other asset class ever that's as scarce and as rare. Like, how crazy is it that we're sending people off to the moon and to Mars and things right now? What if that technology gets better, and then when we do land on Mars, we find a huge gold reserve there, just like I was talking about before, the supply goes up. Now what? That value really dies down. Bitcoin, you can't just find more Bitcoins out in space. Unless Jeff Bezos knows something that we don't know. And that's why he was working so hard to go to space. Okay. I see it. Like, the closest thing, in my opinion, to Bitcoin in actuality of value would be something like fine pieces of art, because Picasso can't continue painting his paintings. Like, he has painted all the paintings that he's going to do. The issue with art, however, is that it's subjective. And so no matter how expensive or how valuable those paintings are, I think it's ugly, and so I'm not going to hang it in my house, and so I'm not going to pay for it. So not only is Bitcoin scarce in total, but also every 4 years it's designed to make it even harder for miners to actually mine the Bitcoin itself. So real quick, the way Bitcoin is mined is kind of crazy. So I'm going to go through a quick summary of exactly how it kind of works. So miners create the Bitcoins by using computers to solve mathematical functions. So basically, it's like coding on steroids to a certain extent. So then these miners can go ahead and sell the actual Bitcoin or their asset to exchanges. And these exchanges, think of it like the New York Stock Exchange. That's where people go and buy different stocks of like Apple or Microsoft or whatever. Regular people like us can go to these exchanges like Coinbase or Binance, and that's how we can buy pieces of the Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin right now is at about $45,000 or so for one Bitcoin, but you don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. You can buy one Satoshi. That's like basically like if you're buying stocks and you can buy fractional shares, just a piece of it, you can buy a piece of Bitcoin. So once you buy that Bitcoin, you can either keep it on an exchange, or the smarter way is to put it into a wallet that takes it off of your computer and takes it off of the internet so that it can't be hacked. That's the smartest way to do it, but we'll go over that in a different video. So as I mentioned before, scarcity is probably the number one reason why Bitcoin is so valuable and why it will continue to rise in value, in my opinion. Not just scarcity overall. Every 4 years, Bitcoin goes through this process called halving. And so the same amount of work, the same amount of time that it takes a Bitcoin miner to mine one Bitcoin today, 4 years from now, or actually 3 years from now in 2024, they're going to get half of the Bitcoin. And then 4 years from now, it's going to be a fourth of a Bitcoin. And then 4 years from then, it's going to be an eighth of a Bitcoin. And so for that reason, the value is going to go up because it's going to be harder to get any little pieces of it mined. Lastly, one of the main reasons people absolutely love Bitcoin and the idea of just cryptocurrency and blockchain in general is that it's decentralized. So think of it as when people think of central banks or politics or whatever, they think of it as corrupt, or they think of it as a small group of people who are very, very wealthy and they get to own everything and they make it bad for everybody else. And that's usually the case, to be fair. But in the case of Bitcoin, there's no such thing as any one person running Bitcoin. Like, there's not a CEO of Bitcoin. Bitcoin just kind of is. Nobody even knows the actual person who built Bitcoin and started it. So no single person or group has control. All the users on the Bitcoin network collectively have control of what goes on. And like I said before, blockchains are immutable, which means that the data that's entered is irreversible. Once it's there, it's there. Now, I know you're thinking, okay, cool, now I get how Bitcoin works, but tell me how much it's going to be worth in 10 years.
Show me the money! I need to feel you, Jerry! Show me the money! Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money!
So here's the deal. For all the reasons that I just explained, I believe that Bitcoin is going to be the new store of value long term. I think that gold and other types of assets like that are going to be old school. While I still think they're going to be relevant, as people start to get more educated on this topic, they're going to see that this way of being an actual asset in which a supply cannot grow can only make the price go up higher, which means that it's a great asset to invest in long term. Right now, like I said, Bitcoin's hovering around $45,000. And many analysts say that it's going to hit $100,000 or more by 2022. I tend to agree with that price target looking at some of the fundamentals. I also see a bunch of hype happening with institutions buying in. Just recently, it was confirmed that AMC is going to start taking Bitcoin for the price of their tickets. And obviously, Tesla and other companies have evolved with Bitcoin in some way. And so the more and more of those that happen, the more it's just going to be totally normal. Like even right now, if you look at your Venmo app and PayPal and things like that, crypto is available to be able to send or hold or do whatever with. So it's becoming more and more mainstream. With the next halving happening in 2024, I believe the price is going to jump just like it's jumped every single time. Another reason why I invest some of my portfolio into Bitcoin is because of inflation. Obviously, over the last year or so, the Fed has just kind of thrown a bunch of money into the economy in the form of different stimuli and other types of things. But what happens is with all that money in circulation now, inflation is going to happen, and it actually already is happening. A normal inflation rate is about 2%, and over the last couple months, we're looking at closer to 5%. So I don't know exactly what it's going to look like 10 years from now, but what I can see is when I look back 10 years ago at Bitcoin and even 2 years ago at Bitcoin, Bitcoin has gone up and it continues to go up, especially at the halvings. And so I can almost guarantee that my investment is going to be a good one long term. Simple supply and demand has always dictated value. So why would it not be the case here? I think the amount of adoption from institutions and the fact that senators right now are arguing over the types of laws that should happen with cryptocurrencies are all indicators that show that this is going to be around for a long time. This is something that you definitely want to get a piece of if you can, after you've researched it and after you understand it, and that you invest intelligently and you don't just YOLO all your money into a coin that's named after a Shiba Inu, but do so with a project that makes sense. And in my opinion, Bitcoin is the best cryptocurrency and the one that is going to be the safest long term, and that I can see being something worth real value down the road. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments section. Where do you see Bitcoin going? What do you think in 4 years at the halving? Or what do you think in 10 years? It'd be super awesome for me to look back on my comments 10 years from now and see how many of you guys were super close. Thanks for listening, guys. Professor G, out.